A wild bird is flying toward you right now, and it wants something from you. Not food, not shelter. It wants your fire, your axe, and your hands. And in exchange, it's about to lead you to one of the richest calorie sources in the entire African bush. The question is, does it know you're the good guy, or does it just know you're useful? Northern Mozambique, dense woodland, heat pressing down on everything. A man stops walking. He makes a sound, a specific trill, followed by a grunt. Brr hum. Not a word, not a whistle you'd use to call a dog, a very particular, very local sound passed down through generations of Yao honey hunters. Seconds later, a small brown and white bird drops out of the canopy. It lands close. Too close for a wild animal that's never been fed by hand, never been tamed, never been trained in any conventional sense. It chatters. It flies a short distance, lands, looks back, flies again. The man follows. 40 minutes later, they're both standing at the base of a tree, and inside that tree is a wild hive dripping with honey. The bird gets wax, the man gets calories. Nobody signed a contract. Here's the part that should stop you. This isn't folklore. This isn't a one-off nature documentary moment. This partnership has been documented since at least 1588, when a Portuguese missionary in Mozambique wrote down watching these birds fly into churches to eat the beeswax candles and guide people to wild hives outside. Since then, it's been recorded across sub-Saharan Africa, tested, measured, and replicated. And it's not the only one. Off the coast of southern Brazil, wild bottlenose dolphins do something almost identical, using head slaps and tail slaps to tell fishers exactly when to throw their nets. Two completely unrelated species, two completely different environments, same basic move. Wild animal voluntarily, repeatedly helps a human for a cut of the reward. So here's the thing. Nobody quite tells you when they show you the viral honey guide video. The real mystery isn't, wow, animals help humans. The real mystery is what's going on inside that bird's head when it does it. Does it think of you as a partner? Does it recognize kindness? Does it have any concept at all of you as someone trying to help it? Or is something much stranger, and honestly much more impressive, actually happening? Let's break down what's actually happening, step by step, because the mechanics are almost more interesting than the mystery. Step 1. Nobody can do this alone. The honey guide has extraordinary spatial memory and can sniff out a hidden hive in a dense canopy, but it can't break into a tree trunk, and it definitely can't survive an angry swarm of African honeybees. Humans have the opposite problem. We have axes and fire and smoke, which stuns the bees, but we're terrible at finding hives on our own. Each side is bringing a tool the other is missing. Step 2. The sound is the trigger. Human honey hunters use specific calls, the yow brr hum, a hadza whistle in Tanzania, and crucially, these sounds are made only during honey hunting. That consistency is what turns a random noise into a reliable signal the bird can act on. Step 3, and this is the part that should genuinely unsettle you. The greater honey guide is what's called an obligate brood parasite. Translation: the chick hatches inside another bird's nest, and it comes equipped with a hooked beak specifically built to kill its foster siblings in the dark. It never meets its real parents. It receives zero instruction on humans, honey, or anything else. So where does the guiding behavior come from? Not from mom and dad. It's built in as a raw instinct, an innate pull to guide, and then it gets sharpened individually, bird by bird, through trial and error with real humans making real sounds near real hives. Step 4. The loop reinforces itself. Humans who use the traditional local call get more birds, faster hive discoveries, more honey. Birds who respond to the local call get faster wax rewards. Do that across generations in the same region and you get something remarkable, a local dialect. Honey guides in Mozambique respond best to yow calls. Honey guides near the Hadza respond best to Hadza whistles. This is cultural transmission, running entirely through the bird side of the relationship with a species that never had a childhood. Now, here's where it gets messy, because you'd assume if this relationship is so mutually beneficial that the bird would never lead you wrong. It's not that simple. Roughly 3.7% of the time, honey guides guide humans to something that is very much not a beehive. A black mamba, a buffalo, a lion. For over a century and across huge stretches of sub-Saharan Africa, the folk explanation was punishment. The idea being that if you don't leave the bird its share of wax, next time it gets even. That's a genuinely terrifying idea for a honey hunter. It's also, according to the data, not what's happening. For a long time, two other assumptions rode along quietly with the honey guide story, and recent evidence has taken both of them apart. Assumption 1. This whole relationship originally evolved with badgers, and humans just muscled in on something that already existed. Investigation into that claim turned up essentially no solid evidence of badgers reliably following honey guides at all, and badgers lack both the hearing and, obviously, the fire technology to make the partnership work. The guiding behavior appears to have evolved specifically around us. Assumption 2. The punishment theory. When researchers systematically tracked non-bee guiding incidents in Mozambique, the rare misfires didn't correlate with whether a human had previously shared wax. The much better explanation is far less dramatic. The bird simply made a spatial memory error, not vengeance, a wrong turn. And then there's the biggest reframe of all, one that cuts against basically every heartwarming animal rescue video you've ever seen. When a trapped or entangled wild animal goes completely still during a human rescue, that stillness is not gratitude, and it's not trust. It's called tonic immobility, an involuntary fear freeze, the nervous system's absolute last resort when escape isn't possible. What looks like an animal calmly accepting your help is biologically an animal that has shut down in terror. Which brings us back to the honey guide and the actual answer to our question. There's no evidence these birds understand human kindness as a concept. What they've built instead is something researchers call behavior reading, tracking sounds, patterns, and outcomes with extreme precision, without ever needing a theory of your mind at all. Now, zoom in on why this actually mattered historically, because this wasn't a cute side hobby. Wild honey delivers roughly 300 kilocalories per 100 grams, dense, fast fuel, exactly what a foraging brain and body need. Beeswax and larvae bring fat and protein on top of that. But finding a hidden hive in dense bush unaided could take roughly 8.9 hours of exhausting, high-heat searching, and that's before you deal with a swarm of aggressive African honeybees capable of triggering fatal anaphylactic shock. Partner with a honey guide, and that search time drops to roughly 3.2 hours. That's a 64% cut in exposure to heat exhaustion, wandering through predator territory, and stings. For a hunter-gatherer community, that's not a fun fact. That's hours of saved energy redirected towards hunting, gathering, childcare, survival. The bird wasn't being generous, but its behavior over hundreds of thousands of years quietly kept people alive. Here's the uncomfortable postscript. This ancient system is disappearing, and not because the birds changed. Across parts of Ghana and Malawi, as younger generations move to cities, buy refined sugar, and switch to industrial beekeeping, they stop making the calls. And when the calls stop, the birds simply don't learn them. A communication tradition that survived hundreds of millennia is quietly going extinct, not through some ecological collapse, but through the simple fact that nobody's talking to the birds anymore. The same pressure is closing in on the dolphins in Brazil, where shifting fish stocks and changing fishing practices threaten to unravel a partnership that gives a cooperative dolphin a measurable 13% survival edge. These relationships were never written into any animal's genes as a fixed program. They're closer to a living language, one that has to be spoken generation after generation, or it goes quiet. So picture that man again, standing in the Mozambique woodland, making a sound his father probably taught him. Brrr, hum. He's not asking the bird to trust him. He's not asking it to understand what a favor is, or what gratitude means, or that he's, in some abstract sense, a good guy. He's just speaking the only language that's ever worked. And somewhere above him, a bird that never knew its own parents is listening for exactly that sound, because for it, this isn't friendship. It's just what works.